So really appreciate the attendance tonight, and this has been an anticipated seminar with Willard. Last year was a banner year with walleye fishing, and it's going to be interesting with this drier weather. And so we appreciate Taylor's time for coming out, and we'll turn the time over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I mean, this is awesome to see that we had to expand the room. You know, I know Willard can draw a big crowd, but it's awesome to see this many people excited about Willard. So I know I'm a relatively new face to a lot of you. I see a few friendly faces, but oh, is this not going to reach?
There you go. There we go.
Oh,
I like to think we're all friendly.
A few familiar faces, how about that? So I figured I'd introduce myself and share a little bit about me. I started with the Division of Wildlife in 2022. I am our flatwater biologist, or our reservoir biologist for our northern region, which is essentially everything north of I-80. So think of Rockport, Smith and Morehouse as kind of my southern boundary. So those are kind of the big reservoirs that I manage that are listed there, the more popular ones. So if you ever have questions about that, feel free to just reach out to me and contact me. Just have to step forward every time. Prior to coming here to Utah though, I spent about 10 years in the Great Lakes. So the majority of my time I spent on Lake Superior, working with lake trout that looked like that, working on big boats, you know, over 100-foot boats, spending 3-4 weeks at a time out on the water. So I'm not shy about big systems, big waters, complex systems, things like that. So I have a lot of background there.
What brought you out here?
Job. So after my time in the Great Lakes, and part of that was through grad school too, but I earned my PhD in biology from the University of Vermont, so I went out to New England for a little while. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. If you can stand
Yes.
right, that's perfect.
Okay.
Then I don't have to choose
Maybe
between.
this will actually reach there.
Then I don't have to choose between the screen or you.
Sure.
Thanks.
So I worked with whitefish, which are, you know, these really pretty fish, cold water fish. There's a lot of issues with them, but looking at climate impacts on reproduction, development, things like that throughout North America and Europe. So I got to travel a lot. I got to experience a lot of different places, gain a lot of experiences from all these different places, countries, things like that. Perfect, it reaches now. After grad school, I went down to Mississippi and worked on these maybe not so pretty fish anymore. Working with invasive carps in the Mississippi River Basin, doing data analytics for them. So I have a pretty heavy background on the quantitative side. So throughout my talk, you're probably going to see a lot more data than you're probably used to, but I'll try my best to walk you all through it.
That's the one they all jump out of the water when you see the boat?
That's the one that they jump out of the water. There's more people going to the hospital because they get smacked in the head by those fish than you think. What was that?
What is their name?
There's 4 species. So there's silver carp, bighead carp, grass carp, and black carp. So they're all lumped into these invasive carps.
Which one was that on the screen?
That is a bighead carp. Nice and pretty. More ugly than our common carp we have here in Utah.
People die on the Illinois River.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm probably going to give a little bit of a different talk than what you typically see here. So I will do my best to give you a nice update on Willard Bay, kind of talk about the forecast of what we're seeing. But then I also want to talk about, we're just going to flip all the way through this while I'm standing here. Talk about some of the warning signs, some of the red flags that we've been seeing. We have a really long-term data set with Willard, and we've been able to kind of do some new analyses to unlock kind of some of this data and highlight some of the issues that we're seeing with Willard. Talk about some of the recent management updates that we've been doing, and then kind of shift gears and give you all an insight into what I do during the winter and talk about some regulation modeling and what that means for Willard in terms of a walleye regulation change going forward. So talk about some of the rationale behind what we're seeing and what we might change. And then I'll touch on the remaining proposed new regulations. As I'm going through this talk, feel free to just pop up questions if you have them too. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Willard, we have a really diverse sportfish species assemblage. So it's dominated by our warm water fish. So there's no trout, there's no slimers in Willard, but walleye up there, wiper, catfish are probably our 3 most popular species in Willard. Smallmouth bass are also in there, and then gaining a lot more popularity in recent years are our yellow perch, which are truly probably some of the biggest in the state, but not known about as well. Anyway. All right, and someone in this room asked me what my opinion of gizzard shad was. Yeah, and truly they are the lifeblood of Willard. There's not many places in this state where we can have gizzard shad. Willard is one of them, but they are a really fatty, energy-dense food source that can reproduce 3-4 times throughout the summer and just create this huge abundance of forage for our predatory fish. So they are by far the main forage species in Willard. They were introduced in 1990 to Willard and have been there since. Willard is also our statewide source for walleye. So every year, we are actually supposed to start this week, but if you walk from your vehicle into Shields, you might notice that it's kind of windy out. So we actually canceled a lot of our spawn operations this week because of the wind, but we'll be hitting it hard next week. And it is why we have walleye in the remaining waters throughout the state. So this is our fertile population. It's what we call our brood source. We go out there, we collect spawning males and females, we bring them back to the marina, and our hatchery crews artificially fertilize. Those embryos then go back to the hatchery and get stocked out throughout the rest of the state. And so there's 8 waters, including Willard, that receive walleye solely because of Willard. So it is, because it's our brood source, it has some special attention, it has some special considerations that we need to factor in. Because it's our brood source water, we do annual surveys on it. So every year, we go out and do a gillnet survey on it with 24 locations by these gray circles here. And we also do summer beach stains at 4 different locations where we can find sandy beaches, which if you fish Willard, you know are kind of hard to come by. But that's to assess our nearshore kind of forage communities. So that's where we hit gizzard shads, newly born smallmouth, yellow perch, log perch, sticklebacks, fish you've probably never heard of, but fish that our predators eat. So, looking at some trends in Willard, so looking at walleye and wiper here. So on this y-axis here, so going up in values, don't really necessarily focus on the value itself, just focus on kind of the changes in those trends. Mean CPUE is catch per unit effort, which is just a measure of abundance. So think of number of fish. With wiper, we kind of see this boom and bust cycle, right? Where they go up and they go down. That's very typical of wiper. It's also very typical of walleye too, where we have this cyclic walleye. You can see compared to our historical values, yes, we have some up and downs, but overall it's much higher and much better than you say what it was 20 years ago. And then channel catfish. Channel catfish, we don't do a whole lot with them. We don't stock them. We just monitor them. But they've just kind of remained relatively stable. We are seeing some decrease, yeah, as someone just said. I don't know if this thing's ever gonna work. You know what, I have a different one. I'm gonna swap it.
To one of us and say, next.
Maybe.
Get a battery.
I could just talk from back here. But yes, as someone just said, we're seeing that decreasing trend in walleye, or catfish, sorry. one thing that's not necessarily captured on that is what we classify as called substock length, which is basically fish that which are basically fish that have not been fully recruited to the population. So they're small fish, they're still vulnerable to being eaten, not a fish that you are gonna catch, things like that. And this last year, we had a really high abundance of substock fish. So I do expect that catfish to kind of rebound. That doesn't necessarily impact you this year, but the future for catfish is looking better. And then, like I said, we had this pretty big year class. Maybe not year class, but the trend is going up. They're low in abundance on yellow perch, but the yellow perch that we do have out there are jumbos. They are classified in the memorable group of what we use for cutoffs with certain lengths for yellow perch, and we have a few that jump into that trophy class as well. So if you can find them, the yellow perch are there, and they're nice, they're fat. That is my favorite fish to eat, so I love perch. Yes.
What length are you calling memorable? 12 inches?
I believe 12, maybe 11, something around there. But these are averaging about 13 inches and over 2 pounds. So that's if you fish for perch, you know that's a great perch. All right, and then looking at condition. So condition is just basically a measure of how healthy that fish is. So think of this 100 as a perfectly equal length by fat, by width, like a perfect fish. Anything below that is a slightly skinny fish, anything above that is a fat or plump fish. And so as you increase in length for wiper and walleye, so this black line, this blue line, it's just right at that 100. So it's hands off, everything's great. Wiper or walleye slightly above, all those metrics are fantastic. And this is something that we do not see often in Utah. A lot of our reservoirs are forage limited, and again, we have shad, and that's the main takeaway from this, is we have a stable forage source that is producing fat fish, right? They have a lot of food to eat, and so they're not declining. Typically, we see a lot of our species, this line it'll look like catfish, right? Where they'll start high, and as they grow in length, it'll just plummet down because they can't keep up with their metabolic demand. Yellow perch, there's only 4 fish in this data set, so don't put any weight into it really. With channel catfish, yes, it is declining with length, but again, that's very typical of Utah species. Yeah.
I see those up there, but do you still have a population of crappie up there?
There is a population of crappie, and we actually did pick up a handful of crappie in our nets this last year, which is very atypical. So usually we don't see crappie. We would monitor crappie with a different type of method, and we don't do that at Willard. So we don't necessarily monitor them. Occasionally we'll pick them up, like I said, but it's not common. So there is black crappie in Willard. We have talked about introducing white crappie into Willard as well, which will do better with more of that rocky shoreline. Black crappie need kind of that woody vegetative habitat to spawn, and white crappie are a little less particular in that front.
I should have asked this a few slides ago, you don't need to go back, but it seems like that year 2015 for a bunch of species was, what was the deal on that? High water?
High water.
Was it?
High water here, low water here, low water going, 2020, 2021, 2022, all low water, 2023 picked up. But again, this isn't capturing that first year class that was born that year, because it's only measuring those fish greater than that stock length. And so then that's why you start to see this pickup here and here, because those fish are starting to get captured in this analysis then. So high water, driving that up, low water driving that down.
Water level is how?
What's that?
How's the water level now?
It's starting to go up. If you don't know, they had a construction project that they were doing this last year, so they did draw it down in July. They removed a portion of the dike on the south side, had a pipeline to replace. That's all been completed as of January, and the water's starting to go up. But we didn't have a great snow year, so it is low still, but it's increasing. It went up about a foot in this last week and a half. So the more rain we can get this spring, the better it would be. All right, and then our forage. So gizzard shad, I've emphasized how important gizzard shad are in Willard. This is our trend for gizzard shad up here in this top left. Same thing, looking at abundance. High water, driving that up. Low water, causing that population to crash. It stayed low for a while, and it may not look like it, but we did actually see gizzard shad coming back this last year. The scale of this, I mean, it goes up to 50,000 fish per hectare. Hectare is like 2.5 acres, something around there. So, I mean, if you can think of an acre and having 50,000 gizzard shad in it, that's what we had in 2017. So to see that it kind of just makes the scale on everything off. But we did see our shad coming back this last year. Our water temperatures stayed warm throughout the winter. Typically we see a die-off of shad, but they stayed warm, and we did not see that die-off this year. And so there's probably a pretty big insurgence of shad coming into the system that those wiper, walleye, catfish were able to utilize and feed throughout the winter and spring. Typically that's kind of a lean time of the year when those shad die. Spring gets, those fish get a little hungry in the spring, which is why fishing tends to be pretty good May, June, because those shad haven't spawned yet. I don't expect that to be the case this year. And if you notice, as we go down, everything else goes up. So when shad crashed, everything else filled in that space. So looking at smallmouth, yellow perch, log perch, those all just skyrocketed when shad went away. So in some sense, when one forage species went away, Willard was able to rebound in a different way and still provide those small fish for those predators to eat. So that's good. That's all a great sign. We also don't monitor smallmouth bass, adult populations, but you may notice that we've had some really great spawns 2022, 2024, sorry, which is a great indicator. Like I said, we don't necessarily monitor those adults, but I mean that's a great pseudo representation of those fish and what might be available. So.